What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we've got more news. We are right around the corner. I think after this card for Lightning Overdrive, we have like 11 more cards, and the set's going to be out in like 4 days. So we're probably going to get them in like the next 2 days. We're just going to get all the last 11 cards. We know how those cards tend to go, though. Like usually, like most of them are going to be like filler cards. They're nothing crazy, but there's always a couple that are actually interesting, so I'm still excited to see those. But today we're looking at a new fusion card that is potentially a future super poly target, question mark, and also a really interesting artwork revealed for one of the 3 archetypes coming in the next deck build pack, and somehow Konami decided that the abbreviation for Deck Build Pack Ancient Guardians is DBAG. Yeah. So, let's start off with a fusion here. Alright, its name is Dracrown of Mysterion. It looks really cool. I mean, I love the color combination. You have like the turquoise and the gold. Looks very, very clean. He almost looks like a Dark Magician Fusion-esque card, right? Like Dark Magician riding a dragon, right? Those kinds of things. Anyway, he is a light spellcaster fusion effect monster. He's level 8 with 3,000 attack and 1,500 defense, so he's pretty beefy. And his materials are, you guessed it, pretty generic. It's any spellcaster plus any dragon. And I know that's not as, generic as we've seen with stuff like Starving Venom and Mud Dragon of the Swamp and stuff. But that's still fairly generic. I mean, imagine if you're playing something like Shaddoll, a deck that already likes to, if not main deck Super Poly, play it in the side. You already cover the spellcaster part of the equation, and all you need to do is, if it's a side deck card, or even just, otherwise, your opponent just, maybe there's a dragon deck in the format, but also there doesn't even need to be a dragon deck in the format, because we've seen stuff like Borreload Savage be an end board card for decks that don't even play dragons. Like, it's not even a dragon deck, it's just ends on a dragon boss monster. Same thing with Dragoon. Dragoon is just a spellcaster, right? Like, if you play a dragon deck, you can just side deck Super Poly if you know you're playing against a deck that leans on Dragoon or is spellcaster based anyway, and you can get this off to potentially clear that monster because they can't respond to it. So you play around the negate entirely, because one of the big problems with Dragoon is even if your deck has an out to Dragoon, sometimes it's hard to get to that out through his negation and whatever other disruptions they have on top of it. So very, very cool that gives you that. All right. And as far as effects, his second effect is a hard once per turn. He cannot be used as fusion material, which is pretty interesting because he's a spellcaster. So I guess the idea is you're not able to make him and then use him to make another one of him, potentially, whatever. First effect, this card loses 100 attack for each of your banished cards. That's not the craziest thing in the world. I mean, I guess if you're playing something like Desires, Extravagance, potentially Pot of Disparity in the future, or a deck that just does banishing in general. Virtual World's a big one, banishes a decent amount of cards. That can be significant, but I don't think it's the craziest thing overall. The second effect, though, says if a monster or monsters is special summoned by its own effect, by its own activated monster effect, or by the activated effect of a monster with the same original type, you could target one of those summoned monsters as cost, banish it and all other monsters on the field with the same original type. So, kind of a lot going on there, but essentially it says if a monster is going to be summoned via its own effect or just an activated monster effect with the same original type, you're just going to banish the monster summoned and any other monster that has the same type. So it's a really weird form of disruption. I don't think it's really that practical. I think it's a little bit specific, but I mean, you could look at something like Virtual World. I mean, all the Virtual World monsters just say like activate in hand, send a card, summon themselves, do something else. At least he just says like banish, which does load them for Chuche, but it does clear the monster off the field, which isn't the worst thing in the world, all things considered. I don't know. I think it's a fine card. I think if anything, you're not really playing this card for its effects. You're playing it mainly just because its materials are fairly generic. And if we end up in a format with stuff like spellcasters running around, I mean, think about how much Dogmatica ends up like running around. I think this card just becomes relevant for Super Poly, potentially. I don't think we'll run into like very many spellcaster dragon combo decks like that are combined with those and end on those kinds of monsters together. But I do think it's possible that if you're playing either a spellcaster or a dragon deck in a format where decks are consistently ending on stuff like Dragoon or Borreload Savage or Spheres, Heavenly Spheres, this card's pretty good just making use of Super Poly so that you can clear the spheres without even letting it tribute itself, so they don't get the monster or the disruption off of him, which is great. Stopping the Savage, stopping the Dragoon. Dragoon's the biggest one, I think, but I don't know. I think it's a fine card. I just don't think it's going to take over the whatever. It's a cool card. I just wish its effects were a little bit more desirable. That way it wasn't just like, oh, he's not only generic, but I actually want to make him Shaddoll's already take advantage of Super Poly so naturally, just by your opponent having any attribute that's like normal, like dark or light, boom, you take super easy advantage of that. And you can play certain tech cards like Shekin Naga might become more popular because they're also going to get a good Earth monster pretty soon, and whatever, so they can actually cover other bases as well. This card, I just don't think its effects are desirable enough to make you want to play it, because I'm like, why would I make this when I can just make Winda and or Construct or even Shekin Naga or Grista or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, all of them are just kind of better, except for maybe the water one. I can't remember the water one's name. I'm pretty sure it's pretty bad. But the other ones are not that bad, honestly. So, I don't know. It's a cool card nonetheless. It's a Super Poly target. Could come up. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. And the other really interesting piece of information, let me just refresh my page here to just make sure I'm not missing any extra news that got revealed. Doesn't look like it. Okay, we got this little guy revealed. This seems to be the first card revealed for our new archetypes for the deck build pack, Ancient Guardians, otherwise known as DBAG. And his name is this, Berkti Polari. He's a Water Beast Synchro Effect monster, level 1 with 700 attack and 1000 defense. Okay, nothing too crazy. Except for the fact that he's a level 1 Synchro. How does that even work? Think about this with me, please. How do you summon a level 1 Synchro where all Synchros by, mechanic require them to require one tuner and a non-tuner? Well, monsters have to be at least level 1, which means the smallest level you can be mechanically for a Synchro is level 2. He's a level 1 somehow, so he's going to have some crazy mechanic, I'm sure, to summon him out, like maybe Ultimaya Zulkin-esque effect, and we'll have to see on that. I'm pretty sure he's part of the Power Ranger, Megazord, Transformer-looking guy, the Water Synchro archetype. I don't think he's part of the Pendulum archetype or the new supposedly reptile archetype, but I'm still really curious. I like his design. He reminds me of Monokuma from Danganronpa, if you know what that's from. That show's like really strange, weird show, weird game, whatever. It's a cool thing, but yeah, I think that's pretty much gonna do it for us here today. I just want to talk about this card and talk about this. Oh, also, by the way, this effect to be announced tomorrow on Yu-Gi-Oh!.jp. I don't know what that means, but the effect's gonna get revealed tomorrow, so we'll talk about that tomorrow if it's really cool, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of insight into how this archetype's going to start off. But very excited to find out about all 3 of these archetypes and see where they want to go. But that's going to do it for me here today. Sorry if I rambled a little bit. Just a small video, but it ended up still being like 10 minutes. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys. I will see you in the next video. Peace.